Alright, Ford Fusion fans, I want to go over something I haven't seen online. The other day I had a wrench light come on in the Ford Fusion Sport. This is the 2.7 liter, it's a 2018. Scan the code, it was a P0236 boost pressure sensor circuit A circuit range fault. Did some research. There's not a lot of information out here on the web about these 2.7s, especially in the Fusions. Obviously, for me, common sense says that I've got an air pressure sensor issue. So I had a couple intermittent issues in the past, probably the last 6 months. The wrench light came on maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 6 months. And it was basically at idle when I first started it, mainly remote starting it and letting it run for a minute, get in the car, turn the ignition on, and then there's the wrench light and the engine's running very, very poorly. You hit the accelerator, you pretty much got nothing. So shut the car off, restart it immediately, the wrench light is gone, engine's running fine. I've also had I'd probably say for a long time, at least the last year, this engine has idled at operating temperature. I would probably compare it to an engine that's been cammed. A very kind of a rough idle, a loping idle, should I say, to try to describe it the best I can. I never found any issues with the engine. I just maybe attributed it to carbon buildup on the valves, especially a cold startup, and just went on with my way. I've done different cleaning services to this to help the carbon buildup on it. Never had any issues other than the fact that it idled a little weird, but it didn't sound bad, honestly. It sounded kind of cool for what it was, but didn't have any issues, so I didn't really put much thought into it. Now that I'm getting a check engine light and wrench lights from time to time and disabling the engine pretty much, I figured I better do something about this. So here's where I stand with this, and if anybody has any more information on this, please comment, let me know. So first off, my first culprit I went to was the manifold air pressure sensor, or they call this a boost pressure sensor as well. But this one on our 2.7s is right here. You've got the throttle body, your intake tube, throttle body, right on top, right after the throttle body, there's what they call the manifold air pressure sensor or the boost pressure sensor. Different people, different forums, Ford calls it different things, but that's one of the culprits I thought it could be. And then also we have another one of these same sensors down, if I can find this, if you follow this tube down to the intercooler, in a very inconvenient spot, way down in the bottom, right at the corner of the intercooler, there's another one of these sensors, and they look identical to each other. Now, where I was coming into an issue when I called Ford, gave them my VIN number, told them what I was looking for. I was either looking for the sensor up here on the top of the intake or the one down underneath on the intercooler. The guy at Ford said that they looked like the same part number, they look like the same sensor. That may be true. They do look identical. I've had this one out multiple times. I've had the one down here out multiple times. You really can't tell the difference physically, and the connectors, they're all the same. They physically look the same. There's really no difference that I can tell between those two sensors, and they both serve the same purpose. Now, the old one that I pulled out of this motor, let's see if I can get the focus, there it is. So this was the original that was in this. I can maybe guess that the 24/17 is a date when, focus, there you go, is a date when this sensor was made. This is a 2018 year model, so that might make a little bit of sense. This part number up here the DV2A-9F as in Frank 479-BC is actually the part number. Now when you look on Ford is only using the 9F479. They're not including this 4-character part number in front of that. Now, the new sensor that Ford gave me had the same 9F479 in the part number, but at the end was different and at the beginning was different. When I compared the two sensors side by side physically, they were both the same. I didn't see any differences at all. Focus. No, sorry guys, there we go, maybe. I didn't see any differences in these two sensors at all, other than the number that's stamped on these things. Let me focus in on the new one. So this is the new one. That's the new one I've got installed, and you can see you've got a GV2A at the beginning and a DA, a Delta Alpha, at the end of it. And when you look, I can't focus on both at the same time. So you got a DV2A on my original, and then you got a GV2A on that one. So obviously the G and the D are different, and then the last two numbers at the end, this one being a BC and this one being a DA. I'm not sure what differences are. The only thing I can maybe guess is that Ford redesigned the sensor. Just like the high pressure fuel pump, which I think I have a video on that on YouTube. My original high pressure fuel pump was making a belt squeaking noise from that pump, and when I called Ford about it, gave them the VIN number, they said there was an updated part number for that high pressure fuel pump, and it was a different part number than the original high pressure fuel pump that was originally put into this engine. So I'm guessing, and I'm wildly guessing, that maybe that's the case with these sensors, is maybe they're just updated part numbers. But as you can see, the 9F479 is the same across the board. Now I haven't verified with the sensor that's down here on the intercooler. I'll be honest with you, getting that sensor out was it was a pain in the ass, and pardon my French. It was not fun. You have to remove all the plastic undershielding, and you have to kind of squiggle your hand up in there. It takes some time and some patience, but I was able to do it without taking anything off the car other than the plastic under sheathing from the bottom of it. But so I don't want to do that again right now, but I haven't verified to see if the sensor that's down there, if that part number on the original sensor matches up to what's on here. But what I can tell you is when I installed this new sensor, the one that's in here right now, this one, sorry, not the one in my hand, the one that's on the engine right there, the new one, my idle has improved. It no longer sounds like a loping idle or a misfire. That idle has come back, and then so far on all my test runs, just idling the engine, revving it, shutting it on and off, I'm not getting any error codes, I'm not getting a wrench light. I've yet to do a test drive on it. I just literally got done replacing it and running the idle, letting it run and seeing what it'll do. But so far the idle has gotten a lot better than it's been in a long time. So I can only assume that this was the culprit. Again, when it says sensor A, circuit range malfunction, I haven't found anything online that basically says that, okay, well, this sensor up here on top of the intake is sensor A, and the sensor down here is B, or vice versa. I don't have any information on this thing, so I'm just taking a stab at it. So what I was going to initially do is start with this one, because obviously it's the easiest to get to. It takes 2 seconds to swap that sensor out, versus the one way down there takes a lot of time. So I was going to swap this one out first and see how the car ran, see if I still got the wrench light and the check engine light on. with the same code. So far I have not, but I am going to keep this in the car with me with the small wrench, so when I'm driving, if the wrench light comes back on with the same code, I can take this back out, put this one in, and then move this new one down to the bottom, and that'll help me kind of decipher. But as far as I can tell, that's as much information as I've got on this thing. Again, there's really not a lot of information on these sensors with these fusions with the twin turbos in them. So if anybody's got any additions to this or information that they found or have heard of, I'll be glad to hear about it, so leave me a comment. If you have any questions, or if there's something on your Fusion Sport that you're looking to get into, haven't done before, let me know. I'll try to make a video about it as best I can. So, but thought this might help somebody out there if they get the same code, the P0236 boost pressure sensor circuit out of range, and the wrench light that comes on.